In games focused around combat, especially when that combat is structured methodically, it's integral to mix up the combat in order to keep things fresh. This is why often areas will be themed around mechanics that bosses will later employ in their arena. This concept of mixing up mechanics for boss encounters is old as the medium itself. D&D has legendary actions, for example, which give bosses more action economy to deal with multiple players, and lair actions to make the terrain less favorable. Other games would do things like add mobs or a secondary important objective which puts time pressure on the boss. A DPS level or gear check are good for this as well. One of my favorite ways to make bosses interesting is something as old as time as well. A double boss battle. Double boss battles are divisive. You either do them really well and have people praise you for the fun you had taking them on, or you have people so angry at how unfair the fight is they leave a bad review on Steam or something. What this shows is that when you're a single character dealing with multiple opponents, you have to be very careful not to cross the line into unfairness. It's very easy to make an encounter where the bosses watch each other so perfectly there's no openings, or overlay attacks that are impossible to dodge. In the mid-2010s, a game was released that would go down in history as an iconic iteration of this formula. It was so earth-shatteringly good, everyone who had finished the game would excitedly watch their friends playing for the moment they took them on. I'm talking, of course, about the Twin Dragon Riders. You fight one in the beginning of Dark Souls 2 and then a second in the castle. Amazing. Anyway, Ornstein and Smough were, at the time, amazing for what they accomplished. A classic formula: a large opponent with slow, heavy attacks which are easy to avoid, but a nimble, fast-attacking opponent to cover their weaknesses. The fight is built around reacting to Ornstein's fast attacks, while avoiding the lumbering slams and charges of Smough. When you kill one of them, the other gets their powers in the second phase. Smough's weapon becomes imbued with lightning damage, and Ornstein gets bigger. Sister Frieda and Ariandel would learn from this formula in the later games, while adding another thing I really enjoy about these games: phases that build on the last. The first battle just being with Frieda, and then both her and Ariandel, and then back to Frieda but more aggressive. Both of these fights employ tactics that make beating them rewarding and the gameplay fun. Dark Souls is not the only series that has great boss battles like this, but these are two offhand examples I drew from when thinking about what to talk about today. Hollow Knight and Silksong have amazing bosses with some adds to control and some that are double, and one pretty iconic triple battle. Don't forget Watcher Knights either. Silksong has centered itself as my favorite game of all time, to the point where I have done some amateur speedruns, I will get better when I have time, and dove into some cool mods. One mod, which is the whole reason I'm doing this small video. It modifies the true final boss of the game, which was already extremely challenging on a first playthrough, into something way more difficult, but also fantastically crafted. The mod is called Lost Unchained, and there'll be a link to it in the description. The mod is by Sammy Hammer 1, and they've done just such a great job where I felt like putting together a small video about it while I focus on my other projects. So if you'd like to check this out for yourself, here's my glowing review for how cool it is. Go do this fight and come back. Lost Unchained is a modded boss fight that takes the final boss of Act 2, Grandmother Silk, and the final boss of Act 3, Lost Lace, and combines them into a final confrontation. The fact that this would actually make a lot of sense if it existed in the main game is cool. GMS being Lace's mother, and them both being pulled down into the void. Having them fight as mother and daughter would make sense. I think the narrative is a little better just fighting Lost Lace in the unmodded game though, just simply because the whole point is her mother being extremely weakened to keep Lace safe. Lost Lace is already my favorite fight of all time, so making something that has her mechanics but harder was appealing to me. Just how appealing I didn't know at the time. Right at the start, it's easy to notice that some things have been changed. In the first phase, Lace only uses a few of her attacks, such as her charge and tendril attacks, while GMS will use most of her first phase kit. The modder took time and care to consider how to craft a good encounter, not just throw the bosses together, and it can't go understated how well everything flows between all the phases, with GMS being much slower and Lost Lace being the faster combatant with arena denial and hazard attacks. Each phase of the fight asks you to hit a different target, so in the first phase you'll be paying more attention to Grandmother Silk and spending most of your time in the air, trying to hit her. This play is encouraged because Lace's charge attack denies a lot of the ground, and we'll have plenty of situations later where we're really going to want to master staying in the air. The second phase has Lace being the main target, indicated with Grandmother Silk flying into the background, which is an amazing visual choice. Her blades still cover the arena, so you're not just left to fight only Lace. And she has most of her toolkit here, minus some void attacks and the multi-charge attack from the normal fight. She's really good at getting you to hit her parry, and if it lines up with Grandmother Silk's blades, you can easily lose 4 masks here. This phase is more of a duel with hazards, but it plays really smoothly, and the transition from phase 1 to 2 is well telegraphed and seamless. Both phase 1 and 2 are more of a learning phase together, which sounds wild for a boss encounter, but you'll need to get used to dealing with Lost Lace and GMS's blades, because phase 3 has to be one of the coolest yet grueling step-ups in difficulty. Phase 3, essentially both bosses have their entire moveset, including the area denial threads and circle triple mask damage zones, which means you're usually trying to find a single decent place to stand, or sometimes taking a damage tank from the spikes to iframe it. Usually you can tell when this is about to happen because Lace will disappear and GMS will not do anything for about half a second. Lost Lace has her entire moveset minus the summoned spitty blob void things and the triple charge, but she makes up for it by having a brand new backward spin attack, which is actually very difficult to avoid getting grabbed by if you're scrambling to avoid the GMS blades. Grandmother Silk, apart from having her usual crumbling ceiling attacks and spikes, has a new move involving her blades coming out at diagonals, which only happens when Lace does her blob void attack. It acts both as an indicator that Lace is about to do her massive blob attack, while also giving you something extra to avoid to make it harder to choose where to stand. This is a really standout moment in boss design for me. The mod have managed to take an encounter with a mid and endgame boss just work, while also making sure they cover each other and also always having at least one opening. You're meant to be hitting GMS in this phase, but you'll definitely take some opportunities to hit Lace here for the Silk. At this point, I'm facing the most challenging boss I've ever fought in a game, but also just having a blast while doing it because I understand what I'm meant to be doing, and it's just really cool. Once you've done enough damage to Grandmother Silk, you bind to her as Lace vanishes, thinking you've done enough to call it a day for this fight, but something doesn't add up. Lace is still corrupted and alive, so this happens. Ah yes, a desperation phase. You've bound to GMS with practically infinite silk and healing. Notably, you're the one doing the scream here, with Lost Lace being trapped in here with you, not the other way around. And yet, I almost died here on my first clear because Jesus fucking Christ, is she fast here. Not only does she have some new moves, her old moves are much faster because she's going all out against someone who's just bound to a pale being. She has the full Lost Lace moveset here, outside of the triple charge once again being left out in favor of faster combos and the new move, as well as being able to teleport hit you with her riposte attack, which no longer requires you to hit her parry. And of course, you've seen it on the footage now, so let's talk about the layer threads that keep appearing. If these catch you, they do 3 masks of damage as it would with Grandmother Silk's thread attack. Considering you have high HP and Silk, it only makes sense you'd be put in a position where any mistake causes massive damage. I believe this attack was meant for this fight before release, so it's cool seeing it in action in a mod. I can understand why they left it out for the sanity of anyone trying to get the true ending for the first time, but it is extremely brutal to have an area denial with the homing shots layered on top of it. Hornet's theme plays during this part, which just evoked such nostalgia in me and fits the theme of Hornet being the boss here. I love this kind of shit. As a slight tangent, I was recently invested in the Raid World first race between Liquid and Echo in World of Warcraft for the new Midnight expansion, where what was assumed to be a 3-phase boss with already ridiculous amounts of skill and coordination to beat it turned out to have a mythic desperation phase, one of the coolest moments in gaming. Well, astronauts flew around the moon. Truly a wild few days. phase. Desperation phases aren't meant to be the hardest part of the fight, more of an endurance test to see if you've learned all the lessons from the previous parts of the fight. It being a 4th mythic phase was just awe-inspiring because I got to do my own personal mythic fight because I am in no way good enough at WoW to do that kind of raid. With all that out of the way, I think I've covered how I felt about this mod, why I loved it so much, and will definitely be checking out mods by other creators in the Silksong space because it's an excuse to continue playing my favorite game. I highly recommend you check this out if having me talk about it for 4 pages hasn't convinced you. Thanks for watching, and tell me what your favorite double boss battle is. What? What? Did we do it? 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 Oh my god. 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 Oh, 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 oh. Oh my god, we did it! We did it! Holy shit!